Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop simping in the workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. When it comes down to these mass shooters and the violence they inflict on society, most Americans believe that they have had enough of this violence and they want to try to find a constructive solution to prevent any more mass shootings in the future. However, what most Americans don't understand is that the road to a solution is going to be rough, and the reason why it's going to be rough is because most Americans refuse to acknowledge the core foundation of what is leading to all of these mass shooters. And the problem with these mass shooters is not a gun issue or a mental health issue. It has to do with the way we are raising boys to become men. A lot of these gun control advocates believe that all these mass shooters are the result of a proliferation of guns. That's not the case at all. When it comes down to the whole gun control argument, it falls completely apart when you take a look at gun legislation, such as the assault weapons ban we had in place back in the 1990s. Now, back in the 1990s, during the Clinton years, we had an assault weapons ban in place, which banned people from owning automatic weapons. However, during this exact same period, we had mass shootings at post offices where postal workers went on shooting rampages, and we had a massacre at a Luby's restaurant where an individual took out an automatic weapon and sprayed up an entire Luby's restaurant back in the 1990s. Moreover, we had the Columbine High School massacre where a Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold shot up their entire school. And we had a young man in Paducah who decided he was going to pick off his classmates after he pulled the fire alarm and then ran over to a post to go out and just start shooting people as they ran out. So the whole gun control argument just is it's a non-starter as it relates to these mass shooters, because these mass shooters have been wreaking havoc since the 1990s, and this was during the time when we had an assault weapons ban in place. Moreover, when we take a look at Adam Lanza, he lived in a state where they had the strictest gun control laws on the books, yet he still was able to legally own a gun. And when it comes down to most of these mass shooters, from those disgruntled postal workers all the way up to recent mass shooters like Stephen Paddock and Nicholas Cruz, they were all able to purchase their guns legally. In fact, all of them passed the background checks for purchasing a weapon. So that argument just doesn't work. Neither does new legislation to legislate control over the purchase of guns. It's not going to stop mass shooters. Now, on the mental health front, there is an argument saying we need to do more for mental health. And yes, we do need to do some things for mental health as related to this issue. But doing things as related to psychotherapy alone will not stop this trend of mass shooters. Now, this trend of mass shooters has been on the uptick since the 1990s, and that's even been with all of that legislation to legislate the control of guns, an assault weapon ban, and background checks. And most people with mental health, we have not had a really comprehensive plan to deal with this, but we really aren't going to be able to deal with this with mental health too much, because the core reason why we have all these mass shooters is due to the way we have raised males here in America for the last 50 to 100 years. Now, over the last 50 to 100 years, America has become more and more gynocentric. And because America has become more and more gynocentric, that has changed the way we have raised boys, and that has changed the way boys have become men. And the core reason, again, why we have all these mass shooters is because we have changed the way we have raised the way boys become men. And the way boys have become men has created a whole generation or 2 to 3 generations of dysfunctional males. And the big problem with the mass shooter issue is that no one wants to address how we are raising boys to become men and how the way we have raised boys to become men has created an entire 2 to 3 generations of ticking time bombs, and no one knows when one will explode. Now, a lot of people make the statement that guns don't kill people, people kill people. But when it comes down to these mass shooters, the guns aren't killing people. Beta males are killing people. And the big problem no one wants to deal with, or the elephant in the room, is that we're in the middle of a beta male man crisis. And this beta male man crisis was created back in the 1960s. Now, back in the 1960s and the 1970s, we had this feminist movement. And this feminist movement devalued men, devalued the role of men, and women told men they needed a man like a fish needed a bicycle. Unfortunately, we needed men to raise boys to become men, and because 2 to 3 generations of men did not learn how to become a man from a father, nor did they learn the value of being a man, because we often made efforts to devalue the role of men in media like TV shows like Bewitched, The Simpsons, Everybody Loves Raymond, The King of Queens, and many other television shows. Boys did not learn the value of being a man or the value of masculinity. Moreover, these days, this is reinforced by people in the feminist movement and the SJW movement, where they talk about concepts like toxic masculinity. And this devaluation of men is one of the core reasons why we have this beta male, because the beta male is created by women trying to create what they call a soft male. And the soft male is someone who winds up believing that he has to submit to female authority and sees women primarily as his leaders and authority figures. And because the beta male sees females as his leaders and authority figures, he believes that he can go out here and socialize in the same way that a female does. Unfortunately, this winds up creating dysfunction in the mind of that young boy, and as he grows up thinking that he can socialize and behave just like a female, he winds up running into obstacles. And when he runs into these obstacles, he winds up having short circuits in his mind. And one of the core reasons why he has those short circuits in his mind is because he's trying to navigate the world the way a woman would. Unfortunately, the world judges him by the standard of a man and wants him to behave just like a man. For example, we will have this beta male, and he will try to go out here and have interactions with women in the hopes of pursuing a romantic relationship with a woman. And what he will do is he will try to be the woman's friend. Unfortunately, when it comes down to women, they are attracted to men who are masculine. They are attracted to men who are leaders. They are attracted to men who are strong. Unfortunately, the beta male has all this feminine energy, and he approaches women from a feminine perspective, and he thinks that this will help him get attention from women and romantic interest in women. Unfortunately, women only see him as a friend, and that's one of the first short circuits that this man has. And because he's still trying to apply these feminine approaches to women, what happens is he doesn't understand why things aren't working. He's still trying to make things work the way his mother and the teachers he has in school tell him, these females, but he doesn't understand how to make things work from the male perspective, because he has been taught his masculinity is bad, and he's been taught other men in society are bad, like his fathers and like the men in his community. He's always heard negative information about these men, and he doesn't understand how to be a man. He's still trying to apply these feminine approaches, and then he's wondering, why does he keep running into walls? And when he tries to have interactions with other men, he also runs into walls. When he goes out here and he tries to go out here and find a job, usually he winds up running into a wall because he has been socialized to act like a female. And because he's acting like a female, he's always putting himself in a submissive position with men on the job. And then he's wondering why he's always being passed over for a promotion, or not even being considered for certain things, or even in social interactions with men. He's literally being ignored or in the background. And the reason why that is because, again, that short circuit in his mind. He's still trying to apply these feminine approaches to masculine situations, and he does not know how to navigate a course for life as a man. When this man goes out into the world, he winds up becoming frustrated, he winds up becoming angry, and the reason why he is angry is because he's believed all this information that he was told by feminists, he's been told by his mother, he's been told by female authority figures that he will be this good boy and that things will work out for him. Unfortunately, things aren't working out for him. And because he's trying to apply feminine approaches to a world that expects him to be masculine and act like a man, this is what leads to him having these short circuits. And when you have a circuit board and you keep having shorts in it, what happens is you're going to keep having these sparks. And these sparks, what they do is eventually they lead to the board literally blowing out. And when it comes down to this beta male, he is trying to reconcile these female approaches and these gynocentric approaches to manhood with the way the world works for men. And this is something that the feminists just don't understand about men. And the way the world works for men is completely different than the way it works for women. The way the world works for men is like this. A man has to be able to take care of himself. He is the only one who will be able to meet his needs. He has to be focused in logic and reason, and he has to be able to solve problems for himself. Moreover, he has to set a long-term set of goals for himself that he needs to accomplish. The way the world works for women is that the women primarily get their needs met by men, so they can go out here and do things to get the attention of men that will lead to them wanting to give them gifts and take care of them. Unfortunately, when it comes down to the beta male has been raised by females, and he's used to social behaviors like those of women. Women are used to going out here and just standing there and getting attention from men by just putting on some makeup and some clothes, and the beta male will think he can do the exact same thing. Unfortunately, he's disappointed because females aren't going to pay attention to him in that way. Moreover, when he goes to work, he thinks he can go out here and use manipulative language to try to manipulate men, but men see right through him. And again, all these behaviors lead to the short circuits, which lead to him becoming frustrated and angry because he's trying to reconcile these feminine concepts with a world that is expecting him to behave and act like a man. And usually these guys, they usually wind up simmering and boiling in anger. And then what we see with these mass shootings is the ultimate explosion of their rage. And this is why I say we have a beta male man crisis, because the mass shootings are the ultimate explosion. However, these men have a spectrum of violence. And this is another issue people aren't addressing as related to this man crisis. Because they think that mass shootings are just their own thing, but they're just another part of the whole spectrum of violence in the beta male man crisis. Because the beta male man crisis, the violence these men participate in, it can be something like him exploding in anger when a girl rejects him and says she doesn't like him. He'll call her a C word or a B, up to a guy going out here and slapping a woman or punching a woman or participating in an act of domestic violence, to these men literally participating in self-destructive acts like suicide, or they go out here and participate in the ultimate act of violence, which is these mass shootings. This is why I say this has to do with the way we are raising males, because we have 2 to 3 generations of these beta males, and these beta males are ticking time bombs because no one knows what event will trigger these guys into an explosion of rage. And again, there is a spectrum to their violence. Their violence is not just a mass shooting. Their violence can be cursing a woman out. Their violence can be slapping a woman. Their violence can be getting into a fist fight with a boss. Their violence can be punching out a boss. Their violence can be cursing out a boss. Their violence can be a shooting or a murder of an ex-boyfriend or a girlfriend, or it can be a suicide, or it can be the ultimate act of rage, which is this mass shooting. And this is something people need to understand about these beta males. These beta males, their violence has a spectrum, and they are ticking time bombs. And what's scary about them is we don't know what type of violence these guys are going to participate in whenever someone disrupts their smooth world, because the beta male needs a smooth world. And in his world, he can have no conflicts, no obstacles, because that's how his mother raised him. His mother always gave him what he wanted, and then other authority figures like teachers always gave him what he wanted. And he never had to deal with any sort of conflict or obstacles. Now, when it comes down to conflicts and obstacles for boys, usually the father is there to teach the boy discipline, character, and perseverance. Unfortunately, feminists said that we did not need a man in the household to help take care of these boys. Moreover, they devalued the role of the man. And because they devalued the role of the man, these boys, they believe, could be raised to be better men by women. Unfortunately, they go out here, they raise these boys by themselves, and what happens is they create these beta males. These beta males have a short circuit in their mind. They try to go out in the world and they try to be these better men, and then society rejects them, and because society rejects them, these guys simmer and boil in anger, and they are so frustrated that they don't know how to make anything work, so they decide, because they don't know how to make anything work and they have no value to society, they're going to try to find a way to destroy the world around them. And they try to destroy the world around them through a spectrum of violence. And a lot of people, they don't look at the symptoms of it, like with this cruise guy who was out here harming animals, or people like Dylan Roof out here, they were in hate groups, or many of these other guys out here who were collecting guns. They don't look at those symptoms of the problem that's related to these beta males and this man crisis. All they think about is trying to stop the violence through things like legislation to control guns, or trying to deal with the mental health issues. But many of these issues don't have anything to do really with guns or mental health. They have to do with the way we are raising boys to become men in this gynocentric society. Because in this gynocentric society, we have devalued masculinity, we have devalued manhood, and yet we're trying to raise boys to be men in a world where we have no value for masculinity and manhood. And we make every effort to degrade any sort of image of masculinity and manhood. And again, that's leading to men seeing themselves as having no value, no worth. And with this beta male, because he has learned how to submit to women and he's being told he has no value by women, he goes out here and then tries to destroy the world around him. But no one wants to deal with this issue from this perspective, because dealing with this issue from this perspective means that most American men are going to have to confront women about the way we are raising boys. Moreover, that means we're going to have to change the way society goes out of the way it raises boys to become men. Because we look at this and we have to confront this woman, because in this feminist and gynocentric society, she made the statement that she could raise a boy to be a man. And we have clearly seen from the 2 to 3 generations of beta males she has raised that she was not able to do this on her own, because God never meant for her to raise this boy on her own. He meant for the boy to have a mother and a father. Unfortunately, we see what happens with these beta males who've been raised by these women on their own. We've had 80% of these mass shooters come from single mother households, and we've had the other 20% come from homes with beta male fathers. And these beta males, they participate in these acts of violence because these boys don't know how to be men, they don't know how to navigate the world as men, and they fall apart because they go out into a world that expects them to be a man the way men are supposed to be, but he's trying to be the man that women want him to be. And most women are not sexually attracted to that man, and most men don't respect that kind of man because that man is literally like talking to another woman. And this beta male man crisis is something no one wants to acknowledge, again, because they do not want to confront these females about the way we are raising these boys. The environments we are raising these boys in teach them no value to their masculinity, no value to their manhood, and it does not provide an environment where men learn the value of being a man from other men. And the only people who can teach a boy to be a man are other men. Unfortunately, we don't support men in American society anymore. And that's one of the core reasons where we've had this uptick in mass shootings, because men feel like they have no value, especially a lot of these beta males. And the beta males are the ones who have the hardest time dealing with things. So they're going out here, and after they've simmered and boiled in anger and frustration about not being able to navigate a course in the world or being able to make things work for them in the world, they eventually decide, since the world has no value to them and that they can't get anything out of the world, they're going to destroy the world. And that's why they go out here and participate in these horrific acts of violence like these mass shootings. People want to stop the violence, but the only way, again, to stop the violence is we're going to have to change the way we raise boys. We're going to have to confront these feminists and many of these females out here about the way we have raised boys, the approaches we've had to raise boys, the way we teach boys in school, the way we socialize boys, because these approaches are creating these dysfunctional beta males, and these beta males who are supposed to be designed to be kinder, gentler, nicer, and more functional in the world are turning out the most destructive force to the world since the nuclear bomb. And as I look at it, these Ford Pintos of males are completely defective, completely damaged, and we can't recall them, but we can do something to help the next generation of males to restore balance to masculinity. And that's going to be the constructive solution to these beta males. Unfortunately, most Americans don't want to do that kind of hard work because, again, doing that kind of hard work means acknowledging the root of that problem. And the root of that problem has to do with gynocentrism, and it has to do with the way these feminists and these females out here have helped raise 2 to 3 generations of dysfunctional boys. And those dysfunctional boys have grown up to become beta males, and they don't want to acknowledge that they had a hand in this. And that's why we hear all these deflections talking about gun control and mental health, when, again, this is about the way we are raising boys to become men. And this is the reason, and the only way we're going to solve this, again, is we're going to have to change the way we raise boys to become men, change the environments we have with men, change the image and perception we have of men, and change the ideas we have about men. Because a lot of these beta males out here, they don't know how to be men, but from a man's perspective. They don't know how to navigate the world from a man's perspective. And they don't understand the unwritten social rules for men because they have been taught everything about masculinity is toxic, everything about masculinity is bad, everything about being a man has no value. And these values and ideas are what's leading up to these mass shooters. If you want to stop the trend of mass shooters, we're going to have to take, a critical look at the values and culture of America, and we're going to have to make efforts to change the culture of America. Unfortunately, most Americans, they want a quick fix, and this, again, as I have said in numerous videos, will not be quick fixed. When you have 2 to 3 generations of beta males out here, you have literally 50 to 100 million ticking time bombs. And what's scary about having 50 to 100 million time bombs is that you don't know when they're going to explode or how they're going to explode, nor do you understand how to defuse them. Now, when I look at this picture from a critical and panoramic perspective, one of the ways we're going to be able to deal with this is to, one, acknowledge this problem with these beta males, and then two, we're going to have to find a way to try to diffuse many of these ticking time bombs as we go out here and change the way we raise boys, because the way we are raising boys is what's creating these beta males. And if we keep creating beta males, what we're going to do is have an escalation in violence. And the reason why we're going to have this escalation in violence is because when it comes down to these beta males, they not only want to destroy the world around them, they want to be able to go out in a blaze of infamy. And the reason why they want to do that is because they want the world to know they were there, they want the world to acknowledge them, and they would rather have an infamous place in history than be completely insignificant. The ultimate goal of most of these beta males who participate in these mass shootings now is to break Stephen Paddock's record. Stephen Paddock had a murder record of 52 kills, and when it comes down to most of these beta males, they want to break that record. And this is something that they want to accomplish so that they can go down in history as the most infamous mass shooter. And the only way we're going to stop this, again, is not through gun control, not through mental health. We are going to have to really deal with the fact that we have a man crisis here in America. We have a beta male man crisis here in America. And we have to really do something constructive to try to diffuse most of the beta males that are in society right now and stop creating large masses of beta males here in America by going out of our way to change the way we have approaches to family, change the approaches we have to work, and change the approaches the way we have to socialize from the completely dysfunctional gynocentric way we have been participating in life here in America to something a bit more balanced, where men see some sort of role of value for themselves or some sort of value for the things that they do and accomplish in life. Because as it stands right now, trying to legislate our way out of this with gun control is a complete failure, and trying to deal with this from a mental health perspective is going to be a complete failure, because dealing with it from a mental health perspective is just putting a band-aid on a bullet wound, because the roots of these problems have to do with the American family, and it has to do with the way boys are raised to be men. And we have to change the way we raise boys to be men so that men have a more active role in their children's lives, and boys learn that there is a value to being a man in American society. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to learn more about men's issues, you can pick up my Simp series books on Amazon.com and Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.